Hey y'all, howdy, welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandy Broadwell, and welcome to my witch vlog. I just finished reading the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden, whose main character is a witch, and it was so wonderful, it was so well done, and it just made me think, I need more. I need more witches. So I have picked out 3 different witchy books for this vlog for 3 very specific reasons. The first one is that one of my most anticipated releases for the year has recently come out, and that is Grady Hendrix's Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This is a book that is supposed to be about a home in Florida in the 1970s where parents would send their teenage girls who got knocked up to kind of hide their shame until the baby was born. The premise is basically that these young girls have no agency. All the adults in their lives are making the decisions for them that are obviously drastically affecting their lives. And while they're at this home, they discover a book about the occult and reclaim some power for themselves. So I just think that sounds super good. I'm super excited for this new release, and I have my library hold in for it already, so hopefully I'll be able to get it in soon. Then I have 2 other books for this vlog. We Ride Upon Styx by Quan Berry is a book that I hauled in 2024, which means it's one of my goals for 2025 to read every book that I purchased in 2024. So this one will be a good one to get knocked off the list. And also, this one meets a Buzzword-a-thon cover challenge for the year, which is a repeating pattern on a book. And as you can see, there's repeating field hockey sticks down the cover. So that's fun. So this book is set in 1989, and it is about the Danvers High School field hockey team. And they apparently suck, and it's most of the girls on the team senior year, and they really want a win this year. And so they sign their names in a book and make a deal with the devil, I think, to become like a super epic field hockey team. I know nothing about field hockey, and this is set right outside of Salem, Massachusetts. It sounds very goofy and fun, and I'm excited to check it out. And then the final book for this vlog is I'm participating in the Reddit r/fantasy bingo challenge for this year, and it goes from I think April of 2024 to March of 2023 is when you have to get all the prompts in. And I'm still missing a few squares, and one of those squares is romantasy, and there is a book that was on the Goodreads Choice Awards romantasy category called The Spellshop, whose main character is supposed to be a witch. I'm not a romantasy reader really, but I've actually heard from some readers that they think The Spellshop fits more in like a cozy fantasy than a romantasy vibe, but that sounds better to me. I'm not really a romantasy girly, I don't think, but this one will obviously fulfill the prompt for my Reddit bingo card because it was on the romantasy category of the Goodreads Choice Awards. So those are the books for the vlog. I'm excited for the witchiness to kick off. So, unfortunately, it has already, I guess, and it's not going great. I started We Ride Upon Styx. I am currently 55 pages in, so not super far. This is, I think, almost 400 pages, 360 pages. So the thing that is throwing me off about this book so far is that there is not a main character. And there's a lot of characters, actually. There's a chart in the beginning that shows off all of the girls on the team and what positions they play, which is helpful to refer back to, I guess. But there's a lot of girls on the team, and it's hard to keep them all straight in my head. And I think part of what's making that even more challenging is that there's not a main character. And it's not like you're jumping around between different girls' perspectives. There is a collective team perspective that is the main POV of this book, which is so fascinating because it's just like, we did this, we felt this, us. And it'll talk about individual girls, but it talks about the individual girls on the team all in the same, like, they did this she did that, blah, blah, blah. And there's never an I perspective. So it's like all of the girls have a collective team perspective, and that is how the book is written. I know I'm like harping on this point, but like it's so odd, and it's making it really hard for me to connect with this story so far. I just don't feel excited to pick it up, even though they've already all like put their names in the notebook, and like their field hockey skills are suddenly like much better. And it seems like one of the girls is potentially being stalked by a weirdo, obviously by a stalker, but it's like 1989 and these girls are all teenagers and they don't really know how to deal with that, so they're not dealing with it. They haven't like told any adults or anything, and so I think that's gonna blow up at some point. There's stuff going on and I am interested, but I'm just not captured by the writing right now. So I've actually decided to go ahead and put this one down. I'm not DNFing it yet, but I do feel like it was putting me in a little bit of a slump. So my library hold for the Spellshop came in and I have started reading the Spellshop. I just started it last night. I'm about 10% of the way in. And so far in that one, our main character is a librarian in this like capital city of this island empire. There is a rebellion happening, and she, like in the opening sentences, she smells smoke. And most of the other librarians fled like weeks ago, but she stayed behind because she didn't really believe the rebellion was gonna like come straight to their doorstep, and she didn't think that they would attack the library because there's so many valuable like magic books and artifacts and all these things that she didn't think it would be a target, but it is. And so the opening like part of the book is her and her sentient spider plant named Kaz, which is, I think, adorable. They are escaping the library with like big crates of books that she's trying to save. And it's an island nation. They escape on a boat, and she's trying to think of where to go, and she doesn't really have any friends. She talks about how she hasn't really left the library in like years because all of her needs are provided for there, and she's not social, and her parents died a few years ago. But the house that she grew up in before her parents moved her to the capital city when she was like 8 or 9 still exists, she thinks, and she thinks her parents still owned it. And so she is sailing out to that island to try and find the house that she lived in when she was a small child, because that's the only place that she can think of to go, and she wants to just kind of hide out until everything blows over, and then hopefully eventually bring the books back to the library. That's how the book kicks off. So that's the Spellshop so far, 10% of the way in. That's We Write Upon Sticks so far, about 55 pages in, and I will tune in and let you guys know where I'm at once I have more to say about any of these books. So let me know down in the comments below what your favorite witchy book is. I'd love to create a TBR for my next witch vlog. Super quick update because the sun has set, so I have very limited daylight to film. But also I just have a really short update. I am a little over halfway through the Spellshop, and I'm enjoying my time in this book. However, I also feel like this is a little bit Lisa Frank, if you know what I mean. If you're a millennial, at least you know what I mean. I feel like my little girl self has been inserted into this book. There's mermaids, and there's mer horses, and there's unicorns, and like just the most like cliche fantasy creatures you can think of. And I know that's like not fair of me to say because like dragons are the most cliche fantasy creatures and everyone loves dragons, but like I don't know, it's just a little cutesy. And mer horses, this is the one that really, like, every time it just pulls me out of the story. The main character's love interest, Laren, I think his name's Laren. He's like a mer horse herder. That's his job. And I just can't get over, like, what does this creature look like? It's described as like literally like half horse, half fish. And it has hooves. Hooves are described actively. And I'm like, why? How? There's no way that hooves would evolve for a water animal. I can't picture it in my brain, and because I can't picture it in my brain in a way that makes sense, I'm just picturing a really derpy, stupid unevolutionarily accurate animal. And so just every time they're mentioned, I'm just like, ugh, murder horses? Come on. But I think the rest of it is really well done so far. Like I said, I'm having a good time. There's other like cool parts of it. I think the world building overall is good, and that the character interactions are fun and cute, and yeah, it feels pretty cozy. The main character is a librarian who has had to run away from the library because there was a rebellion and the library got set on fire, and so she saved all these spell books. And now she's like on the island that she grew up on, but has very few memories of. So she's doing the best she can, trying to survive. She opened a jam shop and / remedy shop so she can like distribute the spells to the local population, but not call them spells because it's illegal for people to practice magic in this world. So there's all that is going on, and it's fine. It's good. It's fun. I don't have strong feelings about it, but I'm having a good time reading it. And then the other update I have is that my library hold for Witchcraft for Wayward Girls came in, and that was not supposed to come in for several weeks still. So that's really exciting, but that also means I need to hurry up and get to it because it's a new release. So there's like a ton of people who also have that on hold and are waiting for me to read it before they can read it. So long story short, I'm gonna wrap up the Spellshop, today or tomorrow or whatever, and then I will move directly into Witchcraft for Wayward Girls before I go back to We Ride Upon Sticks, just because I own We Ride Upon Sticks, so there's no rush for that one, but I do want to like not hold on to my library hold and prevent other people from reading it. So that's the update, and I will tune back in after I finish the Spellshop and give you my final thoughts. All right, I finished the Spellshop last night and also started Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. So multiple updates. The Spellshop was fine. It was too, don't do that. It was too sugary sweet for me, which is kind of how I felt when I read House in the Cerulean Sea, where it's like super readable, it's super cute. I totally understand why people fall in love with it, but it was just a little like tooth-achingly sweet for me. I felt like there was like a character that was introduced late in the story that ended up kind of being the focus of the rest of the book, and I didn't really like how that played out. So I'm giving this like a 3 or 3.5 maybe. I don't regret reading it. It was a good read. I can totally recommend it to people, but it wasn't really for me. And I don't know why, like Legends and Lattes, for instance, I loved, and The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, like 2 other books that I would consider cozy fantasy with some romance in them. I don't know why those 2 worked, and like House in the Cerulean Sea and the Spellshop didn't. So maybe I need to do a little more analysis on that before I try and pick up my next cozy fantasy read. Although this one was technically checking the romantasy box for me, I definitely would not consider this romantasy. The romance between the main character and Laren was a definitely prevalent part of the story, but it was not the plot. So yeah. I agree with people who say it shouldn't have been in the romantasy category. It should have just been in the Goodreads fantasy category. But that's okay, because I still got the Reddit bingo square that I needed. Okay, and then I started Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I'm only like 8% of the way into it, so I haven't read very much at all. But basically the main character is obviously a teenage girl who has gotten knocked up. I think she's already at like 32 weeks pregnant, I think, when the story kicks off, and so she's pretty far along. She's showing. When the story starts, she is in the car with her dad, and her dad is super pissed and he's not talking to her, and he is driving her to this home for knocked up teenagers. A home for unwed mothers is what it's called. He's driving her there to drop her off. And so they've gotten to the house and he's left, and she has been abandoned at this home for unwed mothers. She didn't want to go. She didn't know that's where he was taking her. And now she is just like kind of reeling. And she said something really interesting that kind of stuck with me, which was that she wanted to stay home because, you know, even though all of her friends and family have kind of abandoned her, they still know her as a whole person with all of these different interests and desires in this past, whereas the people at this home for unwed mothers, they only know her as a slut. And so I thought that was like a really powerful like insight that she had about why she didn't want to be at this place. Anyway, so not too much to report on other than the plot setup. So that's where I am with Home for Wayward Girls or Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. No witchy vibes yet. Yeah, I will tune in at some point in the midpoint of the book and let you know how it's going. Oh my god. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Okay, I'm 57% of the way through Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Lord have mercy. It's really, really good. I am having a great time, but I'm also thoroughly disgusted. Oh god, this scene that I just read was so gross. It's a lot of body horror, specifically surrounding pregnancy, so trigger warnings if that seems like something that would not be good for you to read. There was also a fingernails scene that I was literally like writhing in bed while I was reading it. I was just like, oh god, no. Yeah, so it's taken a dark turn. So the main character is a girl who, I can't even remember her real name, but when they arrive at the home for unwed mothers, they are assigned fake names because the people who run the home do not want them to make friends here. This is a place of shame. They're never going to tell anyone they were here. They're not going to make friends with the people who are here. And when they leave, they can pretend like this never happened, and they'll have no ties back to this home because no one from the home will know anything about who they were. So the name that she has been assigned is Fern. All of the girls have plant names. There's like Fern and Rose and Hazel and stuff like that. And so, yeah, they're not allowed to talk about any of their past lives or their baby daddies or anything like that. So obviously she's not making any friends. It's a really tough situation. Their doctor like super regulates what food they're allowed to eat and what behaviors they're allowed to do. And it's a lot of bullshit from, I think this is set in like 1969 or 1971 or something, but obviously a lot of science that is no longer true about how women should act and behave when they're pregnant. Also, all the girls are smoking like freight trains because that's what people did back then, which is just horrifying to think of these girls, these teenage girls smoking like cigarette after cigarette while they're pregnant. Ugh, makes me so sad. But anywho, everything that they do is strictly regulated. And so a bookmobile comes by like once every 2 weeks, and the librarian ends up giving Fern a book about witchcraft. The like person who runs the house checks all the books that they check out to make sure that they're appropriate, but the librarian gave this to her with a appropriate looking book cover on it, but it was just like the dust jacket. And the inside was obviously, it's called How to Be a Groovy Witch, which I think is hilarious. And there are like snippets from the book throughout this book, which I also have found really interesting. But so she convinces 3 of the other girls to like sneak out of the house with her one night, and they like perform a spell and it works, and everything just takes a turn from there. So yeah. Like I said, it's gotten gruesome, it's gotten dark, but I'm having a really good time. So I will most likely finish this book today, probably, but regardless, I'll tune back in and let you know when I'm done with the book and what my final thoughts were. Wish me luck. I've just finished Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix, and what a bold book for a man to write that focuses entirely on female characters, pregnancy, women's autonomy, all of those things. But I think he nailed it. It hit all of the right notes. It was an absolutely horrifying read, both psychologically and body horror. And I couldn't look away. I had to know what happened. I really appreciate the way that he drew attention to the social issues with homes for unwed mothers, which were really popular before Roe v. Wade, and the injustices that were forced upon teenage girls and the lack of consequences for men during that era, particularly, but still today. This was a really challenging book in a lot of ways, and it was absolutely disgusting, but I really also liked the nuance that Grady Hendrix brought to Witchcraft and how it was a tool for autonomy and power when girls had no other source of power and autonomy, and how the witchy characters really never fell into like a cookie cutter good or evil. And I feel like, especially lately, books have leaned more into like cozy witchy vibes and steered away from evil witchiness. And I feel like we got a really good dose of like, no, yeah, witchcraft is like evil and scary again in this book, and that was very unsettling deeply. So I just think that this book did everything really, really well, and I highly recommend it, with a huge asterisk of this book is absolutely horrifying to read. So maybe don't, but also if that sounds good to you, then definitely do. So now I'll be going back to We Ride Upon Sticks, and I'll check in with you again after I've read some more of that book. Today I am driving about 200 miles for work, and I'm in the car by myself, so I checked out We Ride Upon Sticks from the library. I am about 150 pages in now. So I'm about probably 100 pages further in than the last time I talked to you guys about this book, because I've read the other two books in between that time. And it is going much better for me now at this point than it was then, because one, I think I just started getting used to the style of writing, but also two, the book started focusing more on the individual girls instead of all of them all at once. And so even though there's still too many of them for me to know, I am feeling more in the story, more attached to the team and the girls on the team. So I am interested. I am actually enjoying the kind of poppy nature of the writing and the very like high school way that it's written. I think the author has done a really good job of, it talks to the audience in some ways, in that it will like describe something like the teachers were smoking or the students were smoking or whatever, and then it would be like, this is 1989, that was normal back then, or something like that. I think that style kind of really works for this book. So anyway, I've got probably about 4 hours of driving today. I've got the audiobook matched up to where I was in the physical book, so just gonna drive around and listen to this. So I will tune in probably at the end of my workday and just let you guys know where I'm at and what I'm thinking of the book so far. Hello, I'm in a different vehicle, you may have noticed, because I had car trouble and I had to swing back by the house and go switch cars, which was kind of annoying. But anyway, I am at my last stop of the day on my little work runabout, so I thought I would go ahead and give an update. I am still enjoying the book. I don't really know who this book is for, because it's obviously based around high schoolers, but I don't really feel like it's aimed at today's high schoolers. I feel like the target audience for this book is potentially like people who also were going to high school in 1989, because there's so many like throwbacks and like callbacks to things that were popular at the time, some of which I'm familiar with and a lot of which I'm not. I was not alive in 1989, so it's interesting, but I don't think that modern like high schoolers would be interested in that kind of stuff, but it's written with that sort of like explanatory way that people who were that age at that time like wouldn't need.
So I just don't know who the audience for this book is. But anyway, I'm having a good time, but I do feel like this book is too long. I want there to be more witchcraft and less just like diving into the why of all of these side characters. Like, we'll get like several pages, or I don't know how many pages it is because I've been listening on audiobook, but we'll get like a long description of like someone's mom and why they are the way they are, or like the random kid in the school cafeteria that one of the teammates sits down with that's not a teammate, or whatever. It seems like it's like, I don't mind it as much when it's one of the people on the team who we're focusing on, but it keeps diving into these other characters that aren't major characters in the story, and I don't know why we're doing that. And then at the same time, I thought at this point in the book we would have more dark witchy stuff happening. They are all connected. They like signed their book. They signed their names in this book and made like a witchy pact or whatever. And they all like tied these strings around their arms that they're not allowed to take off. And over time, their like powers have been developing, and they can like now sense each other's feelings and like read each other's minds a little bit, and they have started to think collectively, like group think. So I think that definitely makes more sense for the way the book was written that I had an issue with at the beginning, where I was like, there's no main character, where it's just like we, us, blah, 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 blah. So I think that is the reason for that, which is pretty interesting, but I still don't love it. That's where we are now. And I'll tune back in. Gotta get back to work. Bye.
All right, y'all. I have finished Rewrite Upon Sticks, which I guess means this is the official end of the vlog. I think I've landed on a 3.5 for this, which is potentially the same rating that I gave the Spellshop. I can't remember if I gave that a 3.5 or a 3. I think this one I would rank a little higher than the Spellshop now that, because I actually finished this 2 days ago and I just haven't updated you guys. But since I've had a couple days from this now, I'm still thinking about it, which was definitely not true of the Spellshop, which I immediately forgot all about. So if I was going to rank the books from this vlog, it would be Witchcraft for Wayward Girls at the tippy top, and then We Ride Upon Sticks, and then the Spellshop, which I would not have guessed after the first 50 pages of this book, because as you know, it wasn't going that well for me. But I did really like the relationships that were displayed between all of the girls on the team. The very last chapter of this book it's all leading up to their state championship, because they're a field hockey team, and that's why they like signed their name in this book of witchcraft to begin with. And because they wanted to do really well, it's like all of their senior year, they want to make it to states. And rather than the last chapter being the state championship, which I feel like is what the book was building up towards, it instead jumps like 30 years in the future or something, to where they're all like moms essentially with their own kids, are now like seniors in high school. And I thought that would be really jarring and unsatisfying, but it was done so well that I actually now can't imagine the book ending any other way. They're all reflecting on how the world has changed, how they have changed, and like seeing where they all were in their lives that far in the future. It all just made so much sense, and I thought it was really well done. I will say I wasn't completely satisfied by the way the story wrapped up, because I felt like there were still a few unanswered questions. It leaves some things a bit more open-ended as to whether things were really witchcraft, or whether things were more of a placebo effect of like they thought good things would happen to them, so they kind of manifested it in that way. But there were other clear indicators that no, this really was magic, which I won't spoil, but then it never really addresses that or talks about like, do they still have that ability later on, like in their later life? Did it fade away over time? Like, it didn't feel like it tied up everything the right way for me. I really enjoyed how many of people's like personal features took on a personality of their own, literally. In this book, there were like, it was in 1989, and they had like big poofy hair, and like one of them had a big like she always put like a ton of product in her hair, so her bangs were like big and poofy, and they called it the claw, and it became like a sentient character in the book. And this other girl had like a really huge chin, and like one of them got an injury on her face that was personified. I really think the writing and the way that that was all done was really clever and really speaks to sometimes how high school kids think about the world and think about other people and things like that. There was a lot I really liked about this, but there was a lot that I didn't. Not that I didn't like, but it just like that I think could have been more effective if done differently, I guess. I will also note for the like 100 pages in the middle of the book that I listened to on audio, I think the audiobook narrator did a fine job, but it was a little off-putting to me, I guess, that it was clearly like a middle-aged woman or a adult woman who was narrating the book, and I feel like it would have been more effective to have had a clearly younger voice, because these were all supposed to be teenagers at the point of the book that narration is happening. And so the fact that a teenager's thoughts and feelings were being narrated by like an older woman, not that she was an old woman, she was just a woman, but I felt like it would have been a better audiobook if it had been narrated by a teenager. So those are my final thoughts on We Ride Upon Sticks, and I already gave you my ranking for the 3 books in general. I will say I still love witchy books. I still can't get enough of them. I could easily do witch books all year long. I have so many witch books on my TBR, but I'm moving on to other things for now. So if you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts on them. But if you haven't, just let me know what some of your favorite witchy books are. I'd love to hear about them. Thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out. As always, please be kind, read more books, and hit the subscribe button down below for more bookish content to come. I'll see you again soon.